We always talk about like you need to know your numbers, but it's like, no, you don't. You need to know the numbers.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your Monday morning energizer covering insights and trends in higher ed marketing and enrollment. I'm Mallory Wilsey, bringing over 15 years of ed tech and marketing expertise to your earbuds.
And I'm Seth Odell, joining the Pulse with my own adventures from leading marketing at top universities to founding Kanahoma, one of the industry's fastest growing digital marketing agencies.
Each week, we bring you the kind of insider insights you typically only find over cocktails with your pals at a conference.
It's fast, it's fun, and it's designed for you, the busy higher ed professional.
You're not just listening to another podcast.
You're checking the pulse of higher education.
Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Welcome back to the Higher Ed Pulse. I am your co-host, Seth Odell, and joined, as always, by the wonderful and amazingly talented Mallory. Mallory, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Seth. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me today. Thank you.
Well, it's great to see you. I'm excited for the conversation. For those of you that are watching, or I guess no, for those of you that are listening and not watching, I'm wearing all black and white today. And the reason is I'm celebrating pandas because in San Diego, the pandas are back. The pandas have been gone for a long time. They were over in China. They've been returned. And last week, the exhibit opened back up and the pandas are here. And for whatever reason, I guess because pandas are great, it is a big deal in San Diego. Like traffic is crazy. The zoo is backed up. It's all record attendance and a lot of excitement. I saw them the last go around a few years ago and they were here. And I am eager to get back to the San Diego Zoo to see the pandas again. So that's what's going on in my world. I don't know if you have any interesting exotic animal situations happening in Saratoga, Mallory, but in San Diego, we have a lot going on.
We're just still running our ponies at the track. Like, we don't have anything as exciting as the like epic return of pandas.
The epic return of pandas. That's what the headline should have been. That's exactly right. It's good. It's a high-spirited moment in time for us in San Diego. We're quite excited. But we're also excited, you and I, about what we have to talk about today. So today's episode, I'll introduce it if that's okay. I don't want to steal your thunder, but we're talking about career advice for rising leaders. And so one of the things we have talked about wanting to do for a while was to like just dish career advice from our own lessons learned, some the hard way, and just share, because so many folks that listen to this podcast, I know you all, are very passionate, committed to your own profession, your own path in higher ed, and like we'd love to share. And so this is all about career advice for rising leaders today. Are you ready to unpack, Mallory?
Time out. Seth, you did not tell me we were doing another Marketing Flubs episode. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. You got me. Well, maybe it's just me. Maybe all my advice for rising leaders is things not to do. Do you have like advice of things to do? You have success stories? Oh, see, I think we're just on very different pages here. Mine is entirely like, here are the 42 places I've stubbed my toe, mark them on a map. Like,
you're like, I did prepare a keynote for that episode a month ago, exactly. And I need to finish it out.
Yes, exactly.
That's so good. No, I love this topic. I think this is just such an important topic because in a lot of ways, I still consider myself a rising leader. So I don't know that I'm necessarily the voice of authority here, but I think that people who are like aspiring to level up in their career, and that might be getting that director level title, that might be entering the C-suite, like whatever that next stage is, wherever you are aspiring to rise to, like I do believe we can all learn from each other's flubs, but also success stories. And there's just, I think, some stuff you and I have like figured out maybe the hard way in our career. And yeah, I'm excited to dish about this too. So I don't know, you always come with 20 examples on these things. So why don't you kick us off, Seth?
Sounds good. I was very modest today. I have come with only 4. So my first piece of advice for rising leaders in education is think of your career in chapters and focus on a narrative. So people always talk about, like, think about your life as chapters of a book. It's the same thing with your career. And I think it's really important to not focus on what you're responsible for, and not even to focus on the outcomes you generate, but to focus on the narrative that you have. Like, what is the elevator pitch? So like when I distill all my time at Southern New Hampshire University, which is about 4 years, I tell people that, I was, part of the core marketing team at Southern New Hampshire University during a time when the institution grew from 7,000 students to 70,000 students. My role was managing brand campaigns and producing TV commercials, of which I made 34 in under 4 years. And it's like, oh, that's your narrative. It's distilled. And this is the other piece of this is don't stay past the narrative, meaning that, like, once you have the narrative, then staying should only be because it brings you joy. But if you want to grow your career, you should wait until you have the narrative and then move on. And so think of your career in chapters, focus on the narrative. Once I had the narrative of, like, I was here, fast growth, I did TV commercials. If I stayed another year, the narrative wouldn't have changed. And so that's when I knew it was time to move on. So that's my first one.
As someone who's probably stayed in some roles a lot longer than they should have, I think that's incredible advice. And, we just aren't in a time anymore where someone is 30, 40 years at one location, right? Like, people spend 2 to 5 years somewhere, they move up, they move on, they move up, they move on. And when I go to hire people, I often ask them for their narrative. And especially when we're in marketing roles, being able to tell a story is such a critical skill set, right? And so you need to figure out, I co-sign this big time, because it's like, especially if you're a marketer, figure out your own story and figure out how to tell it really well. I love that, Seth. That's great. That's really great. Nice.
I appreciate it. What's first on your list?
I have a few. I came with 4 as well. I think my first one is the thing that has been most impactful to me in my career, especially as I have looked to climb the ladder. And it's been the benefit of my network, right? So it may feel a little obvious, but, like, invest in and build your network. Relationships are so critical. And that is recently Tamika Ferguson, who is a creator from our Pulse Check series, said the word peer tour. And I'd never thought of that before, but you have to think both about the mentors up, but the peer tours across. And it's been those peer tours in my life that have had the biggest impact, because we're all on a similar career path and trajectory. And over the years have all risen into, bigger leadership roles. And maintaining those relationships has just brought incredible information and, the ability to ask questions and brainstorm and wrestle with ideas. And so, joining professional organizations is a big component to this, really maintaining those genuine connections. And for me, it's been social media that's really kind of helped me nurture my network over the years.
I love that. That fits my second one really well too, because mine is definitely all about networking as well, which I think is worth calling out. So my second career advice for rising leaders is that the biggest opportunities won't get posted online. The last time I wrote a cover letter was 2007. Most, if not all, the jobs that I've gotten in my career have been ones that have been brought to me. Even if they get posted somewhere, it's already, like, in the bag. They're already reaching out. They want to have conversations. And the reality is a lot of opportunities don't get put on the market cold. And so it does mean you have to have a lot of feelers out there. And so, I talk to people all the time who let me know off the record, hey, I'm thinking about leaving, or I'm looking for a new opportunity. Like you let your network know, let people look out for you. Early in my career, I think I was looked down on networking. Like, we're supposed to all be like contacts and know each other's skill sets. And somewhere along the line, I realized that, like, the only real necessity in networking is to genuinely root for other people. You don't have to even have a lot of similarities. If it's just like, hey, I know you and I'm really rooting for you and I really hope you're well, like, that's enough. Like, that's like the foundation of a simplistic friendship, and that's totally fine. And so build your network, nurture your network, because the lesson I would always share is that the biggest opportunities, more often than not, won't get posted online.
100%. They don't get posted, or they only get posted on the company's website, and you got to be stalking them to see it.
Totally.
That is such good advice. All right, my next one is, I will admit I'm stealing this from my colleague Colin at Element 451. He taught me the value of developing my give a shit scale.
Tell me about this.
Yeah, it's been invaluable to me since I have really like embraced this idea. So, essentially it boils down to like, what hill are you going to die on, right? Like, we all have stuff every single day we have to make decisions on, or we have to work across departments or manage up, or someone above us makes a decision we don't agree with, or maybe we want to push back on something, and you can burn out really easily if you climb every single hill, right? And so you have to decide for yourself, what are the things like that rank really high on your give a shit scale, and you got to know which of those things you're going to fight for, and then have the resilience to stick with it, right? And if you can create some shared language in your team around this give a shit scale, then you can come at tough conversations by saying, look, guys, like, this is a 3 on my scale, right? And then everybody kind of knows what you mean. Or, y'all, this is a 9 on my scale. Alarm bells start going off, right?
Okay, this is so good. So this is so funny. My wife, Lauren, who we use a scale like this in our marriage, actually. I don't think I fully put this together, where we talk about, like, are you a 2 or a 10? And so, like, we talk about, like, where do you want to go to dinner? And we talk, where do you want to watch? There's all these, like, common things in a relationship. And, like, we're always like, are you a 2 or a 10? Because if you're a 2, then, like, just don't weigh in. You don't care. And if you're a 10, we're going to do what you want to do. And so it's like, sometimes we're both 10s or both 2s, and then we got to hash it out. But if quickly we figure out, oh, you're a 10 and I'm a 2, or vice versa, it's like, well, then let's just drop this and move on. So she always says, are you a 2 or a 10? Is like a common phrase in our household to figure out, like, if this is really a thing that I guess one person really gives a shit about. And if it is, then, like, let's just defer and let's roll. So that's so interesting. I've not thought about that professionally, but that totally makes sense.
There you go. Your gift from me today, Seth.
I love it. That's a good one. I'm gonna like apply that. That's really, really good.
Cool.
So, okay, my third career advice for rising leaders is solve your boss's problems, not yours. It's so often in a role to focus on our own aspirations or visions or the things that we want to do. But the reality is, like, our job is just to make sure our boss hits their goals. And our goal is just a component of their goal. And so just, like, make your boss look good, make sure you're hitting the goals, solve your boss's problems, not yours. So one simple anecdote for that for me, when I was at UCLA, the associate vice chancellor came up to me at one point and said, hey, do you know Final Cut Pro? And I said, yes, and I didn't. And I went home and learned it over the weekend. And I, like, became the videographer. She's like, they were being asked to film more stuff and put more stuff online. And it was 2007 and 8. And I figured out how to do that. And I solved her problem. And by solving her problem, I literally became the first videographer in the department. I became, like, the lead for social media. Like, I did all this stuff for UCLA that I was totally unqualified to do because I solved her problem, not my problem. So solve your boss's problem, not yours.
Fantastic advice. Fantastic. And then when you become the boss, here's my next piece of advice. I really hold to the tenet of hire slow and fire fast. And I think that's tough in higher ed when we tend to be in an industry where we're letting people go is not as common as maybe, on the agency or ed tech side, right? So I know for our on-campus listeners, this may be challenging, but hiring slow and firing fast has never burned me. And usually, within about 90 days, if that person is going to succeed or not. And when you start seeing signs that they might not be the right fit for that role or the right seat on the bus, start documenting things. I have had many times in my career where I have not had the discipline to document the stuff that I should have, and it's burned me every single time. You do have the time right now to document whatever it is, because 3 to 6 months from now, when you really need that information, you are going to thank yourself because you'll actually have it and you won't be racking your brain trying to figure it out. But hopefully you don't even need to get to that point, because if you hire slow and you really make sure you do your due diligence on finding the right person, right? Like, that can help solve the problem before it even becomes a problem.
I think that's super important. People are the most important thing when it comes to the quality and caliber of the work that we're able to produce. And yeah, depending on your environment, it can be easier or harder to make like changes in that area. But there's always things that can be done. And I do think I have seen often that people will wait too long to address something, and then the problem is already quite large. And so I think that like do the hard thing is almost always the right answer. And in this case, I think that's a really good call out. I really like that. All right, Mallory, I have one more. My last and final is if you're looking to grow your career, you should look for big brands or big growth. So I got this advice early in my career. So one of the things that someone who worked in tech told me was you either want to look for a big brand, meaning like once you work for Google or Facebook, that sort of brands you as really like high quality, or you want to work for like a really fast growth startup, because when a company is growing really quickly, they will oftentimes let people internally do things that they're not qualified to do. And so in the case of my own career, I benefited twice. The first is that I spent 4 years at UCLA, which is the number one public university in the country, a really great high quality brand. And so early in my career, I was like, oh, he's a marketer at UCLA. Yeah, I'm one of like 100, but yeah, I work at UCLA. To this day, that still is valuable for me in my career. And then on the flip side, the big growth is I went to Southern New Hampshire in 2011 at a time when I was one of the first, I think just over 100 employees. Most people had never heard of it. And then, when I left, we had 1,500 employees, and I had 3 different jobs because the company was growing so quickly. I kept being offered opportunities to do work that I wasn't qualified to do because it was faster just to give it to me than to try to create a role and go hire somebody and burn 3 or 4 or 5 months waiting. And so if you're looking to grow your career, look for either a big brand or big growth. And both of those, I think, can be really big opportunities if you can find it.
That's fantastic. I'm like, processing my career under the guise of this advice. And I'm like, oh, I guess I've kind of accidentally done that. Cool. Good on me. But
yeah,
I think that's so smart. Yeah. My last piece of advice is to be financially savvy. And that is hard to do because numbers and math is hard. But whether you are in admissions, student success, marketing, etc., everyone's got a bottom line. Everybody's got it, right? Whether you're on campus or not. Learn how to manage budgets, analyze financial statements, know how to read a P&L sheet, and then use that information to make decisions. I think that women in particular tend to need more business acumen to get seats at the table. And it's not fair, I'm not saying I like it, but I've learned and through experience that has unfortunately been true for a lot of us ladies. So developing that kind of financial savviness, that business acumen, it impacts everything from strategic planning and resource allocation, your long-term vision, to operational efficiency, which is critical in this industry right now. And ultimately, it leads you to innovation because you become more maybe willing, or it's easier to adapt to change. Financial insights can really help a leader, figure out market changes, tech advancements, different shifts in consumer behavior. It might help uncover things that you didn't see before. So I think it's critical if you are a rising star, if you're looking to grow in your career, like it might not be fun, but go take that finance class, or whatever it takes.
I totally agree. And this comes from the guy who has a sweatshirt that says EBITDA on it right now, earnings before interest, taxation, depreciation, and amortization. I love this piece of advice. I think it's hard for folks. It was very hard for me to learn, but we always talk about you need to know your numbers, but it's no, you don't. You need to know the numbers, and the numbers are the numbers that matter to the business. We often in marketing, which is obviously my world, we think about marketing problems, but the reality is what we have are business problems. And the more that you can think and speak and understand the business problems and opportunities in a language that can work across division, the less we talk about impressions and costs per this or that, and we really talk about the higher level performance of the business as a whole. And it's not to say you have to lead those conversations. You just have to basically hang. And I've learned that you just got to be able to hang with a CFO or talk to a VP of another division. And I just think that's probably the best advice of the whole podcast, to be honest, is to lean into that. Don't let it make you uncomfortable. I didn't know what a balance sheet was or what a P&L was. I didn't understand any of these things or budgeting processes. I didn't know what churn was. And it's you can learn all this stuff over time. And I have found bosses actually like talking about it. I was really surprised in my career the couple times that I asked bosses about these kind of things. A lot of times they liked talking about it because this is what they know, versus when we talk to them about marketing, they're not always the marketing expert. So we're asking them to talk about something that we're the expert in. And so just great piece of advice, man. It's an awesome spot to end on for the day.
Oh, well, thanks, Seth. I appreciate that. I think one of the problems in this industry is that our rising leaders do not receive the adequate training to become financially savvy, to understand things like situational leadership or systems thinking. And higher ed, we're like, just the landscape of our industry right now is so much more complex and demanding than ever. And, that's everything from technology is advancing really rapidly, student expectations are changing, and our rising leaders need to be able to navigate all of that and keep their institution driving forward. So that is exactly the reason why we have developed a course with Dr. Carrie Phillips called Lessons in Leadership, and I will drop a link to it in the show notes. Maybe you are not ready for a full course. We also have a handbook that you can just download. I will put the link to that in the show notes as well. But maybe I've just saved the best piece of advice actually for the very end. And it's go sign up for that course, because I really think it's going to help many of the future talent of this industry get the training that we all desperately need.
I love it. I love that you're doing that. I'm super excited to check that out.
Amazing. Well, that takes us to the end of another Pulse episode. Listeners, we so appreciate you. And this is one of those topics where, I want to hear everybody's career advice. I want to learn from all of you. So find us on LinkedIn. We're posting about this episode. And in the comments, let us know what some of your best advice is for rising leaders. Hey, maybe we'll pull the best of the comments and put it into a fun infographic or something.
Love it. If we get enough, we could even do another episode. So
exactly.
Let's hear it.
Let's go. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.